people from Europe, from the US, from all over the world. We also have like, I think usually we have like, I don't know, about like 6 to 7 time zone. So
Nice. That's
yeah, so
awesome.
yeah,
That's
it's
amazing.
yeah, it's always cool like to have this international vibe during the event. So make sure to let us know if you can hear us well, and please like yeah, definitely like before we get started, a question that I like to ask in order for us to really like make the most out of this 45 minutes is basically like for everyone to let us know in the comments. If you are working in sales, you can type 1. If you are working in the marketing growth, you can type 2. And if you are like a founder of a startup or an agency, you can type 3. That way we'll have like a sense essentially of who you are, how we can adapt what we're saying, etc. So Daria here is telling me that there is a lot of people in sales, which makes sense according to the
Nice.
topic. Some founders as well, people in growth. That's okay. That's really cool. So let's get started. There is a lot of information on becoming a better SDR, so sales development representative, but not so much about what it takes to transition, I think, from a sales rep into like a SDR manager and become a real leader, which for me is something different. And when I saw the recent book of this person on stepping into a leadership role, I understood this was the guy to interview. So David Dulany, CEO and founder of Tenbound, welcome and thanks a lot for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, and welcome everybody who jumped on. It's so exciting.
Awesome. So at Tenbound, you work with sales development teams, SDRs, and SDR manager a lot. But what exactly pushed you to write this book about becoming better manager, better leader?
Yeah, it's interesting. We just saw patterns over the years with folks who, they wanted to step up in their career. So essentially with the SDR role, as everybody knows, you can get into sales. That's the usual pattern to step up and become an account executive. Or you can get into management of the team. And so a lot of folks go that route, but they don't necessarily have a lot of experience, managing people. So suddenly, you go from SDR to SDR manager, and you're like, okay, now what, and it's different. I mean, just sales development, like the whole SDR BDR program it's different than running a sales team. It's different than running a marketing team. There's a lot of challenges. So, we tried to just make a simple, framework that you could follow if you found yourself in this position, to increase your success. The other thing is a lot of times the sales development team gets passed back and forth, like sometimes it's in sales, and then sometimes it's in marketing, and even sometimes it's in operations. So if you're an executive and you're like, okay, I have this team, like, what do I do with it? Hopefully this can help as well.
Awesome. And what is your advice for everyone looking to obtain kind of like a managing role?
Yeah, well, I first and foremost, you have to crush your current role. It's sometimes it looks like, a better position, to go up in the company. You'll get more status and you'll get more respect and, more money and things like that if I move into a manager role, and you can kind of take your eyes off the ball as far as what you're supposed to be doing right now. And so, first and foremost, crush your number, like make your number and be super, reliable in the job that you're in right now. And then start to learn about, other opportunities within the company. So first things first, you got to make your number.
That's a good start. And do you feel like because I think I was chatting with Jill Rowley, I think it was like a few months ago, and we're chatting about like a lot of people think that the normal route to success is you start as an SDR and then you're going to become like either an AE or a manager, etc., etc. But sometimes do you feel like everyone is made for the role, or do you sometimes feel like some people would actually be better, like just being a SDR, really like being the best at what they do and keep doing what they do?
Yeah, you know, it's a really good question. So we work with tech companies 100%. You know, it's software as a service companies, and the general practice is, you know, to start an SDR team and start working on the pipeline, either, you know, all the inbound leads, making sure that someone's following up on them, or going outbound. It's just a general accepted practice, you know, with these companies, that they'll have an SDR team. And what's cool about that is it's created this incredible opportunity for people that may not have been in the tech industry, and they may not have been in sales. You know, they can literally, you know, talk their way into an SDR job, you know, at these companies. And what's cool about it is, if you can learn great skills, you know, in becoming a good SDR, but you're in the company, so you can start to look at, you know, what is the best path, you know, for my career. Like I could, you know, the usual one is I get into sales, but what about marketing? You know, what about customer success? Like even product management and stuff like that. So if you're doing a good job, you fit in, you know, with the culture, and you're adding value to the company. It's like sky's the limit, you know, for what you could potentially do. Um, so, and you know, there's a lot of variables in that. So if the company sucks, you know, and they don't want to they
That
don't want to
happens.
like support you
Yeah.
to grow your career, you know, maybe the product isn't selling and they just don't have any opportunities, stuff like that.
Mm.
So but if it's a good company, they've got a good program, like, you know, yeah, sky's the limit. I mean, it doesn't have to just be sales,
Yeah,
for sure.
definitely. I think like this transition actually like happens, as you mentioned, like a lot in tech companies. Like if you, for example, for us, like if we see someone, you know, like wanted to transition from a department to another, it's totally open if they are some 100% aligned with culture and they are nailing their current objectives. Like it's more about the mindset, I think. And you know, like we were talking about the transition from SDR to like management role. What would be like the right process in your mind, like to basically go from an SDR to a management like role? What exactly are the different steps you should go through?
Yeah, so you know, like just coming up in my career, you kind of, you look at the manager job as like, okay, it's, I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna achieve higher status, and I'll be up in the company in the org chart, you know, and I could put it on my LinkedIn page that I'm the manager. And really, all that stuff is, you know, it's important, and it helps in your career. But the main thing with management is you got to love people, and be able to really focus on training and coaching, and spending a lot of time, you know, developing the people on your team and their skills. And you know, just love that whole experience, and putting the team ahead of yourself, you know, to achieve more. Like if you feel like that's your calling, and that's what you really love to do, then you could be potentially a really great manager. But you know, if you're not into that, and
Don't do it.
you just want to focus on your own thing, and like this happens a lot in SDR management. Like, you know, somebody will come in, they'll be a great SDR, you know, they'll crush it, and then they become a manager, and they're like, you know, I don't want to spend all this time with these people, and everybody's complaining, and it's really negative, and like all this stuff. Nobody's making their number. It's all my fault. You know, they just go down that path, and then they're just like, I'm out of here. You know, I'm going to become an AE again. We
Mm.
see that a lot happening. So I would just, you know, first and foremost, do you love developing people and making other people better? You know, that's like, make sure that you can answer that honestly before you start to think about it, or maybe try it, like become a team lead and see if you love, you know, doing role plays and one-on-ones, and like making cold calls next to an SDR and stuff like that. If you love doing that, then you could be really good at this.
Nice. And what, in your opinion, would be the main challenges for first-time managers, like when you just start, because obviously like you never manage, like you can say, okay, I love people, I love to help them like learn new skills, become the best version of themselves. But what would be like the first challenges like you see whenever you're working, you know, with a team of SDRs and managers?
Yeah. I mean, one big challenge, like, you know, that people don't think about a lot is there's an old cartoon of two cavemen, and they both are holding clubs, and there's a caveman in the middle, and they're just both whacking him over the top of the head. And the caption says he's in middle management. So what you don't realize when you get in is, yes, you have to focus on your team. You have to make them better. You've got to train and coach and, you know, put them, you know, on the forefront. You're kind of in the background to help them and facilitate that. But there's also the other side, which is managing up and being able to analyze the data and run A/B tests, and then communicate that to your, you know, superior in the company, and do it in a way that's credible, you know, and that type of thing. And even at some companies, there's political things that are happening, you know, that you got to know the right people, and, you know,
Yeah.
wear the right watch and things like that. So I think a lot of people, when they come in, they don't realize that you're in the middle of this equation, and you have to be successful on both sides.
And what advice could you give to someone who's trying to kind of like navigate, you know, between like their team and later on, you know, like their managers as well?
Well, first and foremost, sorry, I don't know if you can hear my dog. He's bad.
A little bit, but it's fine.
I'm gonna go. He's actually my manager. Sorry, everybody. Yes, I have a dog. Okay, so say you get into that situation. Well, first and foremost, you just acknowledge the truth of what's going on, that you can't spend all of your time managing, for lack of a better word, for managing down. Like you can't spend all of your time thinking, if I just set up my team for success and write the playbook and coach and train, our results are going to speak for themselves, and then, you know, I'll get a promotion, or, you know, I'll get more money and stuff like that. You have to think of it two directional. So first and foremost, just, you have to manage your team, but you also have to manage your boss and the you know, the expectation and communication that you have with them, to make sure that they know that you're doing everything that you can, and you're successful. And I think a lot of new managers, they think, you know, only my team. They forget about that whole other part.
Yeah, that's interesting. And we want to make this as interactive as possible. So I know like some people usually join a bit late, but we still have like a lot of questions. For those of you who just joined, I'm with David Dulany, the CEO and founder of Tenbound. And we're discussing today how to become a better SDR manager, what are the challenges to face, how to overcome those challenges. And we have a question actually from a senior SDR who's working at a startup, and essentially is saying like, we desperately need an SDR manager and I want to fill that role. We have had the only other 2 SDRs leave within a week. How can I tell my manager we need an SDR manager without coming across negatively?
Yeah, I mean, dude, you're not going to like the answer, but well, for the first answer is buy my book. go to Amazon and get the book, because it has everything in there. In all seriousness, though, here's my best recommendation: start being the manager right now. So first and foremost, like we said, you got to crush your number as an individual contributor. Never take your eye off the ball of doing your job as the SDR. But you have to, if you really want to step up and do this, just step up and do it. Just start adding a layer of leadership to your daily routine. And that means leading the team from the front. what changes do you actually want to see happen? What strategy do you want to follow? What do you think the team should be doing? And then just start doing it, dude. Like just start doing it and demonstrate back the results that you're showing from the leadership. And the ultimately the boss of the company, they're looking for results. They want to see results. They really the sausage making, and all that stuff is like secondary to what are you actually producing. So if you step up and you start doing it, without the role, without the title, with nothing, that's like, oh my God, I've got a rock star on my hands. Versus somebody coming in, hey, we need a manager. Just running a company, like, I mean, Tenbound, we have employees and stuff. There's nothing worse than that. You want, if somebody came and they're just like, dude, your companies are running crazy. If somebody came to you, they're like, I just figured it out. Like, here's what we did. Here's the results. Everything's up and to the right,
Yeah, absolutely.
You love that person.
Yeah, I think there is a great article actually about like the different levels of employee. Like level 1 would be someone just saying, hey, we have a problem here. And level 5 would be someone telling you, here's a problem, here's the solution I found, and here are the things that I've done so we don't face this issue anymore. And in startups and things like that, you want level 5. Like, and I 100% agree. Like, I can really relate to that story because Nadia, who's now our head of sales, essentially she started as an SDR. And, within a few months, she's starting like thinking about the process, about the reporting, about how could we onboard like new persons, etc. So for me, it made total sense to have her as a manager, but she showed it. So I think like show, don't tell is a great great thing to do in that type of situations. So make sure everyone to feel free to ask all your questions. Daria will pass it on to me. And a question that I had actually for you was, how does one get to know the team as a new manager? Like, do you have like any specific questions or activities? So that might be for someone, who just joined like a team of SDRs and is becoming a manager. So how exactly would you go into like knowing the team and, like getting, I don't know, is there like personal questions or like how exactly would you process to do this?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough now because we're still kind of on lockdown here in the Bay Area. So in the old days, I definitely meals and activities outside of the office. I mean, even if it's not just meals and drinking, although that does help. But doing like fun activities and just getting out and getting to know people, it is really important, and in the Zoom, virtual environment that we're in, definitely as part of your one-on-ones, it's kind of opening it up to, just not just the numbers and what your pipeline looks like and how many calls that you made and all the usual stuff that you have, but it's like, what's going on with you and your life, and just sort of getting to know people as individuals as much as you possibly can, over Zoom. It's really important.
Nice. And you were talking a little bit earlier about the fact that you need to like kind of never like always hit your quota, always be focused on numbers and this type of things. But how exactly do you gain acceptance from your team, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, so if you're coming in as a new manager, you do have a hurdle to get over because the team is probably just like, we just had another manager, they left, we've had 3 managers now, who's this person,
Yeah.
And so I would say if you find yourself in that position, it's the first, few weeks at least, go into learning mode, almost become like a consultant, for the company. Try to figure out as much as you can about what they're doing, right now, and what's working and what's not, and then going back and getting to know people, you know, on an individual basis, to just spend a little bit of time sizing up the situation before you come in and start implementing a bunch of changes and you know, much needed improvements potentially. You need to build credibility. The other quick thing is, you got to lead by example throughout the whole SDR manager process. You can never, I mean, this is a fatal flaw that we see a lot. You can never give up doing the SDR job. And what happens is a lot, people become SDR managers, and the first thing they're doing, like, oh, thank God, you know, I never have to do that job again. So they drop all the SDR related activities. And then everybody on the team is like, well, this person's just sitting, you know, in an ivory tower looking at spreadsheets and dashboards all day. Like, they just don't relate to that. So you gotta keep in there at least 1 hour or so a day, making calls, sending emails, trying new things, like showing people that you can still do the job and you're good at it, so you can build credibility. So
Nice. I like this. I like this way of thinking. And apart from, you know, like not doing the SDR job, anything that manager or new manager should avoid at all costs when they just arrived?
Yeah, I mean, well, you know, stay compliant with all the HR stuff. You know, you
Yeah.
can't. It's a very sensitive world out there. So,
Yeah.
and that's one thing that's actually really important. I mean, when you're a leader at a company, you have to be really sensitive to. You can't just come in and start firing people or treating
Yeah.
people badly and stuff like that. It's you're on stage all the time, and people are watching what you do. They're taking clues from your behavior to see how to act, you know, and stuff like that. So you really have to step up and be super professional from day one, and make sure that you know, you don't do anything that could compromise yourself or the company. So the spotlight is on you. That's another thing that people don't like about getting into management. You know, it's much more focused on you as an example and a representative of the company versus when you're individual contributor.
Definitely. And we're gonna have some more questions from the audience actually. This is
Sure.
quite interesting one. If as a manager you have a big team and everything is up and running, what is the right way to see if one of your SDRs have some specific struggles and help him or her?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, so if it's possible to use call recording software, you know, some companies don't allow that, or it's, you know, it's illegal in places and stuff like that. But if you can use some kind of call recording software, then you can get some good data on how the calls are actually going, and pinpoint, you know, specific coaching techniques that you can use with them. Otherwise, you could ask them to role play how they handle particular, you know, situations, and then really focus in on where they're struggling. Everybody's struggling with something,
Yeah.
right? So there's got to be specific things that they're doing wrong, that you could potentially help them with. And then we also have them bring in to their one-on-ones a couple of, we call them two volleys. So if you think of volleyball, you know, they hit the message out on an email, for example, got a response, and then hit it back. You can have them bring in a few of those, you know, either emails or social interactions that they've had with people, and look for issues, because there's always going to be some issues. It's too long. It's you know, the bad response. They could have done something different. You know, just with those couple of things, I bet that you've got the next 3 months of coaching down with your team.
Yeah, really agree. And another question that's also interesting, especially I think it fits like very well like startup word. So how do you get close to the team and establish fluently open, transparent relationship but still maintain authority and make it clear that you're not just pals. Because we see that a lot, you know, when the team is like super friendly, etc. Like, how exactly do you like position yourself as a manager and keep like a bit of authority?
Yeah, I mean, that's really tough, especially with new managers, because it's like, you know, we're brought up to be, we want everybody to like us, right? And I mean, especially in sales, like you want to be likable. I mean, there's, you know, you've all dealt with salespeople who you're just like, I don't like you, you know, so you don't buy, you know, unless you're desperate, you know, you don't buy the product. So we come up in sales, you're supposed to be likable. But the thing is, when you're a manager, what's more important is just respect, and that they find you to be valuable and helpful. That's really much more important than having friends on the team. You know, being friendly and nice is great, but if they don't respect you, and especially if the team's not getting any value from you, like if they look at you like you're just useless, like my manager's useless, I still am doing everything myself, that's, you just lost respect. And that's what you really have to work on. So you know, does the team respect you, and are you valuable to them, you know, versus are we pals, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And essentially, like, because we talked a lot about like the transition of becoming a manager, but what would be a sign that some person are not ready to become managers? Have you seen this in some company, like a patterns or something like?
Yeah. I mean, it's really tough, like I said, because everybody, you know, you want to get into, you want to see progression, you know, in your career. Like, I'm moving toward something, right? And then you get into a manager role, and it's just not a good fit at all. And it's like everybody else knows it, but at some point you're gonna have to figure it out. And so, you know, if especially if the person, you know, that you report to is not feeling confident in your ability, and they start to really question, and you start to get a weird vibe that they're not supporting you, you know, that's why you really want to focus on that relationship, to make sure that you're giving them what they need to stay confident in your abilities. Because if they start to lose confidence, then they're telling everybody, you know, behind your back about what a lousy manager you are. And then on the other side, the team is not seeing any value in you, and you've got a revolution on your hands, that you're in between. So I can't remember what the question was, but I would just say you've always got to be on point, you know, with your numbers, and know exactly how the team is performing to report upwards. And then with the team, you know, that you're managing, you've got to stay on the pulse, that they feel like they're getting a lot of value, and that you're really helping them to be successful. And then, you know, everybody will be happy there.
Awesome. And another question is, like, many newly promoted sales managers try to remain problem solvers, but this can bring more harm, I feel. Like, how to prevent this and make your rep stay responsible for their issues, yet staying perceived as a leader who can give advice and show an example?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean,
Difficult.
you want to go in, and it's I see that more with sales managers, because they were the top salesperson, you know, at the company, and they're super sales woman or super salesman, you know, and they want to come in and, you know, close the deal. So they swoop in and take over, and the sales rep is like, whoa, you know, what just happened? With the SDR world, I don't see that as much, because, like I said, most SDR managers, as soon as they get promoted, they drop all the SDR activities. They just want to focus on the management part. So, you know, I would say if you find yourself as an SDR manager continuously doing the job, and like you're the one producing the appointments and producing the pipeline, and your team is, you know, fading in the background, give me a call. I'd love to talk to you because I've never met anybody who had that problem.
Nice. And actually, like building up on this question, someone was saying, should you tell your new team that you are not here to change the way they are doing things, or the opposite when you come as a new manager?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I would put on the consultant hat when you're a
Okay.
new manager. I'd put on the consultant hat and come in and just be super curious. You know, ask a bunch of questions, talk to as many people as you can, and do ride-alongs and listen to calls and look at the emails, and at least spend, you know, a little bit of time at the upfront gathering all that information, you know, and then produce a moving forward plan for the next 90 days that says, you know, based on this, you know, process that we have right now, based on the people that are on the team, based on the technology that we have for the SDR team, here's what I'm proposing as the next steps for the next 90 days. You know, lay it out and get some data. You know, there's so much stuff on blogs and internet, and you can go to Tenbound, you know, get some data to back up your suggestions and go, okay, here's what we're going to do moving forward, you know, and a well thought out plan. Now, you know, some of the people on the team are going to be like, dude, yeah, I've been saying that, you know, for the last 6 months. That's exactly what we need to do. Other people are going to roll their eyes and be like, you know, just another guy with a PowerPoint, you know, presentation. Like, let's see what happens, you know, and then, you know, execute for 90 days, come back in at the next quarter and be like, hey, this is what we tried. We saw some great, you know, progress. This didn't work, you know, and just make it a management cadence. So.
Nice. Yeah, I agree with you. And another thing is, like, you know, we were talking about how sales manager should also lead with example, because I think, like, obviously, like, it's important to show to your team that how, like, I mean, you're still like connecting with the business, you're still like making calls, sending cold emails, like doing all these type of things. But to me, like, the kind of the team performance is often a reflection of the manager. Not 100%, but often. And do you have any specific activities that you would suggest, you know, everyone running, except, you know, like all the classic, I would say, one-on-ones and giving feedback, as we said, like listening to calls? Is there anything, you know, that you would advise to do? Like, I don't know, it can be like monthly or quarterly, or things you've seen in companies that kind of worked well between the SDR and their manager.
Yeah, I mean, so, and I'm actually working on a post about this, and you know, jump on the newsletter and we'll get it to you. But really boiling sales development down to its most basic, you know, function, it's project management. And you know, just saying project management is probably the most boring topic on earth, and that's why nobody does it, right? Because it's like, oh, you know, but sales
Half of the
development,
audience left. Just kidding.
I know. Is anybody still on this webinar? So sorry. I mean, I kind of feel like I have to give everybody the bad news. Ultimately, running a sales development program, a really high performance sales development program, you know, and we see the top companies that do this in Silicon Valley. They're really good at consistent project management. Okay, what does that mean? So when it comes to messaging, for example, you have to constantly be A/B testing different messages to the marketplace. You cannot just have one message, you know, going out day after day and expect there to be some kind of reaction to it from the marketplace. It just doesn't, it's not that easy. I wish it was. I wish I could just press a button and get 52 sales appointments today. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. So you've got to be constantly A/B testing your messaging, whether it's your cold calls, whether it's emails, whether it's social. There has to be constant testing. But where the missing link is, someone has to be actively managing the project from start to finish. And there's a lot that goes into A/B testing. It's not just plugging it into sales engagement and pressing a button. You've got to think about all these different factors. And at the end of the project, you have to report on what was working and what was not, and then reset it for the next 90 days. And hardly any, especially if an SDR team is struggling, when we peel back the layer of it, there's no project management. It's literally like people just winging it every day and wondering what they're supposed to be doing. They're just like, I don't know what to do. What should we do? Well, you don't have any data to show the best way forward. And then if you click down on that, it's because you haven't been managing the project.
Nice. So essentially, like, for example, for a team doing a lot of outbound, what they could do is, let's say, okay, for this quarter, here is the hypothesis we want to test out. Here is how exact, like the step-by-step plan that we're going to apply. And at the end, we'll get enough data to know if this is a strategy we should follow or actually kill it. Is that kind of like what you mean? Yeah,
that's correct. Awesome. Yeah, and the other thing is, so thing number one is it's simple, but it's not easy. That's the key. And so you could literally, after this webinar, go to Google, put in project management checklist, print it out, and put it on your desk. Okay, that's the whole research is done. You got it right there. Okay, so you got the checklist. So now the main thing is implement that project, get to the end of 90 days, report on the findings, iterate the program, and do it again, and do it again, and do it. It's like DJ Khaled. If you ever saw that DJ Khaled video, and another one, and another one. Literally.
Yeah, you can even
years.
put that as a as a sound on the computer.
And nobody wants to talk about that. They want to talk about, oh, if I buy this, or if I hired this person and all this stuff, then it'll be a silver bullet, to fix my thing. But sorry, dude, it's actually a lot of work. And so
yeah, definitely. And also, like, I mean, you have an impressive 20+ year corporate background and career, and I'm curious because I think you've seen a lot of things. So what for you were, I would say, like the mistakes you've seen from manager, and how exactly have you seen people transitioning from manager to actually becoming a leader?
Yeah, dude. I mean, I love that question because it brings up one of my favorite books, other than for mine. There's a book called Ego is the Enemy. And even if you don't buy it, get the Cliff Notes or whatever. But one of the biggest problems that I've experienced myself and I've seen people run into is their ego gets in the way of their success. And so what that means is basically, if you think that you're right about everything and everybody else is wrong, and you're just not going to listen, to whatever, I'm doing it. You're losing out on the feedback and the sometimes like the criticism that you need in order to improve. You're letting your ego block that. And you've got a lot of blind spots, and you could be making a lot of mistakes that you're not willing to admit. And so, read that book, try to work on putting your ego to the side and being a little bit more open to, constructive criticism and improving your performance. And yeah.
Nice. And talking about like criticism, we have like a few questions like from the audience before we actually like kind of like close that. So how exactly would you deliver criticism and give negative feedback so SDRs pay attention but still keep motivated and not feel devastated?
Yeah, man. And so that's a good one. I learned from my CEO a few years ago about the sandwich, right? If you don't use the I'm not going to say it's a bad word, but it's the
it's sandwich.
the something sandwich, the beef sandwich. So you think of a sandwich, right? And you start with something great that the person's doing. Everyone's doing something good, even if they just showed up to the meeting. You know, they're doing something right. And then the middle part of the sandwich is the criticism. So that, be very specific, you know, give an example, you know, have 2 or 3, you know, potential things that they could work on. And then the bottom part of the sandwich is something, again, positive and motivating about them to take away, you know, from the meeting feeling good about it. So just think of that, you know, sandwich and, you know, delivering the middle part as specifically as possible. So it's something that they can work on for the next meeting. And just a quick note on that is we always recommend start a Google Doc or a, you know, something on your computer for each person on your team, and take just 2 minutes after each one-on-one and just write down your thoughts very quickly. Even if it's like 1 sentence, just write down what you guys talked about. Because if you're giving that sandwich, you know, again and again and again, it's always the same thing, then you start to see that pattern, and, you know, you might have to do some performance management.
Yeah. And yeah, I think like from my experience, like the sandwich can work well, but sometimes it's tricky because if people are getting used to sandwich, they're like, yeah, I mean, you're starting with something positive, like, okay, give me the shit, give me the like negative feedback, and then, you know, we can end up. So something I've tried that also works well is to try to kind of like divide. So sometimes when you see something positive, you should reinforce it. So if you have some positive feedback to give, have like a specific time for specific feedback. And when something is negative, you can jump straight in. But I guess it depends kind of on the personality of people. Some people like this framework, others, you know, feel like you're only saying nice things, so you can say like shitty things. So it's sometimes like just the right balance.
Well, yeah, it's a cultural thing, right?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
there's people on from all over the world, so you gotta make it fit your culture. I live in California, and it's all like soy based, you know, meatless, you know, protein and stuff like that. So it's different. So, you know, yeah.
Nice. Another question, and I guess we can finish on that one. What are the best practices, tactics to be proactive on your responsibility as an SDR, and how SDR can bring more value to the team rather than just accomplishing KPIs?
Yeah, I mean, and I've probably said it 5 times, but it's all about leading by example. And so, you know, if you think about like back when you were in school, you know, there was the people at the front of the class who were trying to, you know, be involved in the class and answer questions and add some value, you know, and stuff like that. And then there was the people in the back of the class who were just making like sarcastic remarks and spitballs and stuff like that. And so, you know, who do you want to be? You know, because I think as an SDR, it's a lot easier to be in the back of the class, you know, just like, dude, this sucks, but I'm gonna do this for 2 years and then hopefully get promoted. That's a choice. You can act like that. A lot of people act like that. It's fine. But if you want to step up and like, you know, add value in the company, then you got to move up to the front of the class and, you know, lead by example. So
nice. I think it's a great like key takeaway, you know, like lead with example. Make sure like to understand what motivates you as a manager. Actually, we have like maybe like the last question, the last of the last this time. You know, like what motivation managers should have except salary and bonuses? Because we talked a lot about this path where obviously, you know, you're going to get higher status because you're becoming a manager, etc., etc. But what should motivate them to become a manager according to you, if there were like 1 or 2 things?
yeah, I mean, well, it's that main thing that we were talking about before, which is do you want to put people ahead of yourself?
Yeah.
You know, and put the team and the company ahead of yourself, because that's really what the mind frame that you have to take to be successful. And do you love that? Do you love that winning spirit, you know, as a team and making people better? And you know, if and you could either feel that or you don't. If you're like, I don't care about people, like I just want to, you know, I'll become a coder and like never leave my room, you know, which is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But you know, if that's what you love, like putting people ahead of yourself, giving them the skills to build their career and be successful, and moving the company forward, then it could be a great opportunity for you.
That's really awesome. I mean, David, I think you shared a lot of golden nuggets. Please let us know in the comments what you thought about like this live. David, where can people find your book, first of all?
Yes, definitely. Just go to Tenbound, TENBOUND.com, and jump on the newsletter and just get in a group. Yeah, we were always doing a bunch of, if you're interested in sales development, definitely go there. If you're not, then you'll probably be really bored.
And where people can kind of like follow your update is like LinkedIn, Twitter, what's the best, or email, what's the best
Yeah.
way to get in touch?
Yeah, I'm all over LinkedIn, so definitely connect with me there. And you know, I'd love to meet everybody. It's awesome that, you know, everyone from around the world is interested in this. So
awesome. Thanks a lot, David. It was really amazing. Everyone, have an amazing day and talk to you soon. Take
yeah,
care.
thank you.